Hey guys, what's up? I know it's been tough times, but we gotta stay strong, man. Alright, meanwhile, let me just run through some of my editing techniques, which you might have already seen like thousands of times. But this would be my version of editing, a basic version, of course. So before getting into applications, that is Lightroom or Photoshop, what I generally do is to close background apps, which is causing caches to pile up and clear out everything. So what I'll start with Windows key, run as a command prompt, and then I'll check with prefetch. Prefetch data will give you uh, any if any app is opening as soon as your computer turns on, and it will start collecting that data. So, so if you delete this also, you wouldn't face any issues. So I generally delete all of these prefetch datas, and then what I'll do is I'll again go through run. I go for temporary files. Basically, what your CCleaner does, I'm doing it manually, so I would know clearly what has been removed and what is not. I'll skip which couldn't be removed. I'll do another run through. I'll do a percentage temp percentage this time. I'll remove all of these. If it cannot, then it's not an issue. It will not affect any other background apps which I'm running through. So that is a basic thing I will start with. So let me open up Lightroom before going to Photoshop. Basically, you can do all the editing or processing in Lightroom itself, but Photoshop will give you much better control over the image. So what it does is, opening Smart Object in Photoshop, it will still have its raw capabilities for me to edit in Adobe Camera Raw. So if I double click this thumbnail over here, you will go to another window, which is Adobe Camera Raw. You will have all the features uh, of an image to be edited. You will get all the parameters to edit with. And before starting the edit, you have to know what this image stands for. Like, you just take a minute to see the image and try to emphasize what defines the image, how light works. Definitely, there is always a difference from what you see than what you get. And to attain what you saw, you need to uh, play around with these sliders or play around with this software itself to achieve what you saw, not making it a complete HDR-ish image, blowing out the saturation so high, blowing out the highlights, all that. Like, when you see a beautiful image, you know that it's balanced. That's what Photoshop does too. It'll try to help you in balancing your camera raw itself does too. It'll try to help you in balancing out the image and then give you a final reading what it thinks is the best. So before going out to balancing, we will go through histogram. So this is very important tool. Check your histogram always for highlights and shadow clipping. So if I select this buttons over here, you'll be notice that, as you can see, there are blue blemishes over here, which indicates that the details from that portion of the image couldn't be retrieved. Again, for example, let's say if I pull the slider back, complete underexpose it, all these blue indication shows that the details are lost. Similarly, if I push it up, you know that the details are lost in that red zone. So just know that is the image worth of processing, basically, and then you can unclick this, you can go by your way. In this image, what interests me the most, I have beautiful clouds over here, beautiful color, I have a plane going over here, I have good textures over here. So I'll emphasize on that, and then work your way through basic tone curves, etc., etc., to make sure the image is true to its natural self. Okay, starting with white balance, if I feel it is to be too on the cold side or towards on the warmer side, if not, I'll just try to see if auto works fine. Does it look good to me or something like that? And then I'll try to balance it out in and around close to that range. I will not go too far off that range also. So now that we are clear on the white balance, basically I would start with clicking auto. Photoshop does a very good job at balancing out the image, that is balancing between highlights and shadows and trying to give you a good exposure of what it thinks is the best. But you being the creative aspect in this edit, you have to know that how good or how balanced the image should look. So what I do is I'll pull out some more exposure from this. I'll reduce a little bit highlights from this, because I'll try to keep this as balanced as possible so that I can punch in later to have finer details on that exposures. Shadows a little bit, yes. I wouldn't go through texture clarity or dehaze because these are specific features for specific photos. Uh, if there is something which is hazy and you want to remove that, these comes into picture. Vibrance, I would try to keep it zero itself. Saturation, I would still keep it at zero because saturation is affecting globally and not locally, not certain part of it. It affects the entire image. Coming to tone curves, I would add 3 points to it, and then I would generally go for an S curve in the situation. So what S curve means is I am enhancing the highlights. Let's say if I do this, you'll know what I'm enhancing high. I'll enhance the highlights a little bit. Midtones, yeah, I'll just keep it there. And then shadows a little bit on the upper side because the details are also there in the shadows. So you need to bring out that too. Sharpening. Before increasing or decreasing sharpening, this again is a global adjustment. But if you use Alt and then click on masking and then slide it across, you will know that there is a white layer created or a white patches created and between the dark patches. So what these white patches are the places where the sharpening tool is being affected on. So that's how sharpening works. And then again, you can increase the amount of sharpening or decrease. So coming to HSL, these are your color adjustment tabs. You have your hue, colored variations, saturation, increase or decrease, luminance, the brightness of the saturated colors, and you have your split tonings, highlights or shadows. I wouldn't do split toning because I don't want colors from this. I want details from this out. So coming to lens correction, you have your remove chromatic aberration tool over here. So what happens is there will be chromatic aberration formed across the edges basically. So if you zoom across this zone, you have your you have your purple and green fringing happening on the edges. So to remove that, you select this. Basically, it does a good job on removing. If not, you have your manual correction for removing the chromatic aberration, that is by the selection of hue of green and purple, the amount, and then you start removing manually. So that much is for the basic edit, and I will move to just opening it in Photoshop. So what it does is it opens a edited format or edited version in Photoshop, and after this I would basically do a dodge and burn for this image. Before that, I'll do a Control J that to create a copy for that, and then right click rasterize. The reason for rasterization is if you want to do any more edit on this or any more processing on this, you can do if it is only being rasterized. If not, let's say if I'm on this, I can't take any tool and then work on that. So you have to rasterize that, create a copy, and then work on that. Let's say I'll take a dodge tool and then I'll have midtones selected because now that you know where the light is coming from, you need to work your way through how the light is being spread across. There is no highlights over here, hence I would use midtones to create some details on that. So what I'll do is I'll start giving a slight brushing over here to emphasize the fall of light on these rocks. I'll try not to overdo it, but again, balance out what I can. All right. So if you can see, I have overdid it. So you can always bring down the opacity still. Okay. And then let's say I would add some glow to the image, a little bit of. So what I'll do is I'll just make a copy of this, and then I'll take brush tool. I'll have it a soft brush, super soft, and then in blending modes I'll take color dodge. What it does is it'll blend the colors only, it'll not overlay on top of it. Or if I do a normal brushing, it will take, let's say I'll just show it to you directly. So if I just take a brush, and then if I do a normal brush, it will just add to it. Okay, but if I do a color dodge and take the same color or whatever, then I'll brush over that, it'll highlight that portion, or it'll enhance that portion. So what I'll do is now that my sky is already looking good enough, I'll just bring some details out from already dodged portion. And let's say, just to end it off with, I'll just add some vignetting to it, so it'll emphasize what is in the mid ground of that. Post vignetting a little bit. Okay. All right. So after this, I think I need to add some curves to it. So what I'll do is I'll just reduce the shadows a little bit, increase the highlights a tad bit, so you'll get that S curve. Okay. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for the basics. I'll show you how I would save this. I would generally go to export, save for web, because that's where I would be posting, so it makes sense though. I would also save a copy of PSD format for further use in case needed, and generally it'll be JPEG, quality 85. I'll just keep it that. Embedded color profile, monitor color. So these, if you try to change, your display of this changes. But don't worry, just keep it at monitor color. Whatever you monitor rendered it, you will have that color itself. Your size of the image, just keep it whatever it is. Save it to wherever you want, and then that's about it. Good to go. I hope this helped you guys in starting things off. There are a lot of other techniques also around, but again, for basic, I think this was pretty much okay. And if there is anything you would like to discuss, just let me know, so that in the next session, or in the next stream, or maybe in the next live video at least, I'll just run through that. Thanks a lot guys, catch you on the next one.